Good morning, everyone. Welcome back once again to Empty Cloud Monastery. So this morning I'll be giving a first of 3 talks on the subject of the brahmaviharas, the divine mind states or sublime abodes. So I'll begin by paying homage to the Buddhas, so please join your hands in Anjali. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So, as I said a moment ago, I'll be giving a series of talks on the brahmaviharas. So first off, a bit about what this term means. So the first part of this word is brahma. So brahma, if used simply as an adjective, it means divine or holy or spiritual. Can also have the meaning of supreme, or the best or the greatest. But commonly when we hear the word Brahma, we think about a category of celestial beings, a particular category of devas. So the heaven realms in Buddhist cosmology are divided into 3 or 4 major categories. The first category is the sensual heavens. So starting with the Bhuma devas, so the earth devas, and then the Chatu Maharajika devas, the devas of the 4 great kings, and so on. So including well-known places like the Tavatimsa realm, the Tusita realm, as well as a handful of others that are less commonly spoken about. Then above the sensual heavens are the Brahma realms. And then beyond the Brahma realms, there is the non-physical heaven realms, the realms of the mind-only devas. So that's 3 distinct layers to the heaven realms. Sometimes we subdivide it further, creating a 4th category, which is the pure lands, the lands of the non-returners and the arhants. But the simple way of talking about it is just to divide the heaven realms into 3 strata, 3 layers. So the sensual heavens, the Brahma heavens, and then the non-physical, the immaterial heavens. So the Brahma heavens are the realms where, or the states of being is maybe a better word than realm. So the Brahma states are the forms of existence which beings dwell in who have developed extremely refined, gentle, compassionate states of mind, as well as an extraordinary amount of good karma. Then as a result of that development, then they're able to be reborn as these extremely happy, peaceful, long-lived beings that we call Brahmas. So the lowest of the Brahma devas lives for 1 eon, so the lifespan of 1 universe. And this is what we normally think of as the being called Mahabrahma, a little bit misleadingly called. So Mahabrahma is actually the shortest lived of the Brahma devas. Though from the name, Maha meaning the great one, So you'd think Mahabrahma would be the greatest of the Brahmas, but actually Mahabrahma is the lowest of the Brahmas, the least significant, the least powerful. So Mahabrahma lives for the lifespan of one universe, which, I don't know what astronomers are saying these days, maybe 200 billion years or so, long time. 500 billion, I don't know. It doesn't even really matter. When we get to numbers that big, it's kind of insignificant. And then above that, you have different layers of Brahma beings who live much longer than that. Also, Brahmas are categorized in terms of the size of their mind, like how much space their mind can encompass and simultaneously know. So again, the lower Brahmas, they can encompass the size of perhaps one galaxy or one universe, and then the higher Brahmas can encompass much larger spans of reality. But that's not what's really significant to the topic of the brahmaviharas. What's significant to the topic of the brahmaviharas is the state of mind that the Brahma beings developed in order to become Brahmas in the first place, and also the state of mind that characterizes their existence. So here also we can characterize the Brahma Devas in terms of two major categories. The ones that are related to the brahmaviharas, and the ones which are related to the jhanas, so related to samadhi states. So for this topic that we're focusing on, we're particularly interested in the Brahmas that are related to the brahmaviharas. So the brahmaviharas in Pali are called metta, which is commonly translated as loving kindness or friendliness. Next is karuna, commonly translated as compassion, or sometimes as kindness, though I'm a little bit doubtful on translating it as kindness. Mudita, which literally means joyfulness or gladness, but which is commonly translated a bit awkwardly as sympathetic joy or empathic joy. And then the fourth one is upeka, which is usually translated as equanimity. So what leads to someone being reborn as a Brahma is if they've developed a very strong commitment to having a mind of loving kindness, compassion, joyfulness, and equanimity. Then if they have that kind of commitment to those mind states in their previous lives, and if they have developed sufficient good karma, then they can be reborn as a Brahma Deva. And again, the characteristics of a Brahma Deva is that they are extremely happy, very peaceful. Their mind is very undisturbed. They can be disturbed a little bit, as we see in a few suttas, but for the most part, they're very untroubled. They're very serene, unbothered. And their minds are very gentle and kind. This is one of the key characteristics of a Brahma. Brahma Devas also have a sense of complete safety. There are no natural predators for the Brahmas. So even the Devas of the sensual realms still have a certain amount of fighting and squabbling, and they can be killed or harmed by other Devas. So there's still a certain fear of harm which can be present in the sensual Devas. But for the Brahma Devas, there's no fear of harm. Nothing can hurt them. They're living in a domain of harmlessness. Their own mind is harmless, and also their state of being is one which cannot be harmed by others. So all of this gives us some sense as to what is cultivated through practicing the brahmavihara mind states. So it allows us as humans to live like a Brahma Deva. So vihara literally means living or dwelling. So brahmavihara means the dwelling state, the natural condition of a Brahma, of a divine being, a spiritual being, a holy being. And again, since the Brahma Devas are characterized by kindness, gentleness, serenity, fearlessness, sense of safety and ease, then those are also the attributes of mind which come through practicing the brahmavihara meditations. So through cultivating the brahmavihara states of mind, we're able to have that same sense of spaciousness and ease within ourselves. That same expansive state of mind, that serene, fearless, untroubled state of mind. So for this morning, I'd like to focus in particular on one short verse that appears in quite a number of discourses, which gives us a little bit of an idea of how to practice with the four brahmaviharas. So this verse is used to apply to all four of the brahmaviharas. But I think for now, I'll start by focusing on metta. So metta, as I mentioned, is normally translated as loving kindness. And Bhante Gunaratana suggested many years ago that perhaps loving friendliness would be a better translation. And the logic for this is because the word metta comes from the word mitta, which means friend. So mitta means friend. So then metta literally means friendliness. So again, we normally translate it as loving kindness, but the literal meaning of metta is friendliness. So the state of mind of metta is when you see all beings as your friends. You have this friendly, caring attitude towards everyone. So metta includes all beings, so including yourself, including all the animals and insects and ghosts and demons and angels and all beings, so no exceptions. So viewing all beings as our friends. And what's your attitude towards your friends? You want them to be happy. You like them. You want them to have a pleasant, peaceful, happy life. So that's the mind that we cultivate towards our friends. And that's the mind, therefore, that we cultivate towards all living beings when we practice metta, when we cultivate the mind state of metta, of universal friendliness. And commonly when explaining metta, it's common to go to the Karniya Metta Sutta, which gives some description of how to practice metta. However, since the Metta Sutta is so commonly spoken about, you can find many other discourses, many other explanations of this discourse, so I won't bother to pick it up today. Instead, I'd like to focus, as I mentioned, on another set of verses that the Buddha uses in many places, which it's commonly chanted in many monasteries. So I'm going to recite it in Pali, and you might recognize it. So in Pali it goes, Metta sahagatena cetasa ekang dasang paritva viharati tata dutiyang tata tatyang tata chatutang iti uddhamado tiriyang sabbati sabbat tataya sabbavantang lokang metta sahagatena cetasa vipulena mahagatena apamanena averena abhyapajena paritva viharati. So this is a short description, not of what metta itself is, but rather of the qualities and characteristics that we're trying to develop when we practice metta. So I'll go through this bit by bit. So first off, just to be clear, the state of mind of metta is wishing, may everyone be happy. And in particular, what we're doing is not just to have that as a thought or a phrase or an idea, but we're trying to cultivate the corresponding mind state. So actually bringing up that feeling in the heart of gentleness, of loving, friendly benevolence. That's what we're trying to do with our mind. So this Pali verse, so metta sahagatena cetasa, so that means with a mind filled with loving kindness, with a mind filled with metta. Ekang dasang paritva viharati. So one dwells saturating one direction. So directing one's loving friendliness, one's benevolence in one direction. And it says tata dutiyang, so also the second direction, tata tatiyang, also the third, tata chatutang, also the fourth. So the four directions are north, south, east, west, or you can also take it as in front, behind, to the left, and to the right. So the point here is in all directions. So the four directions is commonly used in Buddhist speech as a way of meaning in all directions. So this is saying in every, all around you, in all directions, you're wishing, may everybody be happy. May everyone in all directions be happy. And it continues, iti uddamado, so it says thus above and below. So the four directions around us, but also any beings above us, any beings below us. Tiriyang is the next word, which literally it means horizontally, but it also has this sense of expansiveness, of spreading, of extending. And the next word is sabadi, which means everywhere. So this whole first sequence here, so the four directions, above, below, around, and everywhere. This is giving a sense of complete inclusiveness. So not leaving anything out, not leaving any direction out. And the next word in this sequence is sabbatataya. And this is an interesting word, which there's some debate about the right way to translate this word. So sabbatata can have two radically different meanings. One is simply the meaning of completeness. So sabbatataya then can simply mean completely or thoroughly. But commonly, you'll see it translated as to all as to oneself. So again, there's two ways of taking this. One is sabbatta, as a single word, means entirely or completely, so thoroughness. But it can also be broken into two parts, so sabba and atta. So sabba means all or every, and atta means self. So sabbatta then could also be taken as meaning to all as self. So treating everyone as equal to yourself. So I'm a little skeptical about the etymology there. It's a little bit of a stretch, not impossible, but a little bit of a stretch. However, the meaning that it brings forward is quite nice. It's indicating the idea that in practicing metta, we're not making any distinction between self and other. So we're not saying, may everyone except me be happy. But we're also not saying, may only me be happy and not anybody else. Rather, we just don't make any distinction between self and other. So we're treating everyone the same as ourselves, and we're treating ourselves the same as everybody else. And the attitude towards all of these is metta. So this attitude of benevolence, of friendliness, of genuine unconditional love towards all beings. Then the next line here, sabba vantang lokang. So sabba vantang lokang means the entire world. So sabba vantang literally means possessing everything. So sabba vantang lokang, again, it means that the entire world and everything in it, and everyone in it. So we're not making any distinction here. Once again, it's just this sense of we're not leaving anybody out. We're not leaving anything out even. So the attitude of metta, it's also having a mind of complete acceptance and gentleness also towards the physical world, such as it is. So with the cultivation of metta, we're also practicing not hating anything. So we don't hate the cold. We don't hate the cushion we're sitting on. We don't hate the color of the walls. We don't hate anything at all. So also towards the entire world and everything in it, we have this mind of acceptance, of tolerance, of kindness, of friendliness. And this is an interesting point. So try going through your day with a mind of friendliness, not just towards the sentient beings that you encounter, but also a mind of friendliness towards all of the inanimate objects that you encounter. So for example, right now I'm sitting on a meditation cushion, and it's my friend. This meditation cushion is my friend. Why is it my friend? Because it gives me something soft to sit on so that my body doesn't hurt as much. My robe is my very good friend. So my robes keep me warm. They also help to preserve my modesty. Most importantly, they identify me as a Buddhist monk, both to myself and others. So my robes are my friend. My glasses are my friend. Without my glasses, it's much harder to see. So my glasses are my friend. But also when you're doing things like opening and closing a door, do so with a mind of friendliness and gentleness and attentiveness. When you're turning the lights off when you leave a room, you do so with a mind of friendliness and gentleness. When you're washing dishes, you do so with a mind of friendliness and gentleness. So it's cultivating a friendly and gentle mind, not just towards the living beings in the world, but towards absolutely everything in the world. And try this out for a day and see how it feels. How does it feel to have a friendly and gentle mind towards all the inanimate objects that you interact with? And you'll see how this really transforms the mind, transforms the way we see the world. Then the verse continues, metta sahagadena cetasa. So again, with a mind filled with metta, a mind filled with benevolence, gentleness, friendliness. Vipulena. So this means that one's mind is broad or extensive or spacious. So one's mind is extremely expansive. It's not restricted in any way. So this is the opposite of narrow-mindedness. So instead of a narrow mind, a contracted mind, we have a vast, expansive mind when we're practicing metta. Similarly, the next adjectives the Buddha gives is mahagatena. So mahagata means vast, large, immense. It also has the sense of glorious. So it gives you this sense of this vast, glorious mind, this delightful mind, this mind that feels just majestic, this majestic state of mind, like the perfect benevolent monarch, this majestic state of gentleness and unconditional kindness and love towards everyone in the whole world and everything in it. And the next adjective is appamanena. So appamana also has carrying on this sense of meaning. Appamana means immeasurable, boundless, infinite. So again, we're not putting any restrictions on our metta. We're not putting any restrictions on our compassionate, loving, gentle, friendly state of mind. We're letting it be completely unrestricted, unbounded. So extending infinitely with no obstruction, no obstacle whatsoever. Then the next adjective is averena. So avera is the absence of vera. So vera means hostility or affliction. So avera means that the mind has no hostility. And it also has the meaning that it's not afflicted. There's no harm to it. And similarly, the final adjective that the Buddha gives, avyapadjena. So again, vyapadja means ill will or malevolence, but it also has the meaning of affliction. So when we're in any kind of aversive state of mind, when we're grumpy or annoyed or angry or hating, then that's like being sick. Our mind is afflicted. Our mind is diseased. So it's a very uncomfortable, flawed condition. So in practicing metta, we're practicing a mind which is free from that illness, free from that disease, a mind which is healthy. And a healthy mind is also by characteristic, it's not hostile or malevolent. It's again, it's gentle, it's loving, it's kind. So I think that's really the main point I want to make today. So I'll be giving 2 more talks on the subject of the brahmaviharas, but for now I'd like to stop there with this brief introduction to the overall topic of brahmaviharas, and also talking a bit about metta. So metta meaning friendliness or benevolence or unconditional love. And introducing this series of adjectives and descriptors that the Buddha uses to talk about the state of mind of metta. So at this time, if you have any questions or comments, this would be an opportunity for you to ask questions. So I see many people joining in today, so really happy to see all of you. So lots of friends joining. Anita says, can you please post this verse? Should be possible. One moment. I just posted it, though, on YouTube. It chopped it into 2 pieces. But nonetheless, there it is. Then somebody posted something in, it looks like Cambodian, but I'm very sorry, I don't know how to read Cambodian, so I can't respond to your comment. And Bhante Sankicha says that the sabbattataya means having no distinction between oneself and others. Yeah, that's one way of translating the word, which again gives a really clear sense of how, also how practicing metta can be an inroad to practicing anatta, not self. So through practicing metta, we're also practicing letting go of our attachment to self, our attachment to me. And this is getting into a more advanced topic, which is how to use the brahmaviharas as a way to develop vipassana, a way to develop insight. So in the suttas, there's a few places where it talks about using metta as a starting point, where one starts by practicing metta or any of the other 3 brahmaviharas, starts by practicing metta. And then when the mind is completely focused on that metta, when you've entered metta samadhi, then you regard it as anicca, as impermanent. You see that it's ephemeral, it's constantly changing. And you recognize that it's dukkha. It's also part of samsara, therefore it's not the highest happiness. It's just another temporary experience, and therefore unsatisfying. And you can also recognize that it's pointing to not self, because when we cease making any distinction between self and other, when we're immersing fully into metta, then the sense of self-identity becomes meaningless. It becomes irrelevant. So you can also use metta as a starting point to contemplate not self. Though for this to be possible, again, you have to be fully into metta samadhi. So the complete immersion of the mind, the unification of the mind in metta, to the point where you're not doing anything else with your mind, to the point where the only thing the mind is doing is metta and nothing else. Then you can use it as a starting point for practicing anatta sanya, the recognition of the non-self aspect of reality. And Michael says, perhaps suggest a practice. I think I've suggested some practices, but a very simple one that you can do is just wherever you are, whatever you're doing, from time to time, just bring up the thought, may everyone be happy. And as you bring up that thought, let your forehead relax, let your eyes relax, let your eyelids droop a little bit, bring up a little gentle smile, bringing the sense of softness and gentleness to your physical face. As you bring up this soft and gentle thought in your mind, may everyone be happy. And just periodically introducing that throughout your day can help to bring your mind back to metta. It can help to reestablish that gentleness and benevolence in the mind. Michael says, related to my previous posts. Oh, I had missed your previous question. Let's see. It says, how do we work with those things to which we might normally be averse to? Foodstuffs on the plate, art, dead trees, whatever. Well, first off, practice a lot of metta. So do a lot of metta meditation and also bringing up the mind of metta as you go throughout your day. That helps to prevent the mind from falling into aversion as easily in the first place. So when you practice a lot of metta, then that becomes the habit of the mind, which means you're less likely to fall into negative mind states at all. And when you do notice aversion arising, pay attention to how uncomfortable it is. Notice how unpleasant it is to be filled with aversion and annoyance and irritation. You'll notice it's actually a very unpleasant state of mind. By contrast, when you're practicing metta, pay attention to how pleasant it is. Notice how enjoyable it is to have a mind filled with gentleness, a mind filled with kindness. It feels so wonderful. So that recognition alone helps to shift the habits of the mind. Because fundamentally, we like pleasant things. We want to be happy. We enjoy pleasure. We don't want displeasure. We don't want discomfort. So by intentionally paying attention to the pleasure and comfort of metta, and intentionally paying attention to the displeasure and discomfort of aversion, then naturally your mind will start to lean away from aversion and towards metta. So you don't need to force that. It will happen more or less automatically on its own. But also when paying attention to food that you dislike, or art that you dislike, or dead trees that you dislike, you can also look beyond liking and disliking and just see it for what it is, which is just sensory information. That's all. So, for example, when you look at a dead tree, what's actually happening? It's just sight. It's just a visual object contacting your eyes. That's all. There's nothing inherently pleasant or unpleasant there. It's just information. That's all. It's like a list of numbers. A list of numbers is not good or bad. It's just a list of numbers. But when you impart meaning on those numbers, then you might decide that it's good or bad. But the numbers themselves are not good or bad. Well, it's exactly the same with any kind of sensory experience. The sensory experience itself is not good or bad. It's not pleasant or unpleasant. It's not likable or unlikable. It's just information. It's just raw data. And then we decide whether we like it or dislike it. We decide whether to react with pleasure or displeasure. So try to see the sensory experience as just being pure, neutral data. And you can shift your mind in this way. So this is actually shifting to equanimity, by the way. So I'll be talking about equanimity in 2 sessions. The third in the series, I'll be talking about upekkha, about equanimity. So equanimity can often be a more accessible state of mind than metta. It's more subtle, but it's more accessible. And Bhante Sankicha says, in a practical sense, broadening of one's mind through metta is a great way to release tension and anxiety, which are manifestations of narrow minds. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, metta makes you relaxed and happy. It's a great way to drop tension and anxiety. That's true. Thank you. And Shadow of Label asks, how do you deal with people that are disrespectful with you in this state? Well, people being disrespectful, that's their own choice. And it's actually quite sad because they're choosing to hurt themselves. So the practice there actually more readily fits under compassion. So karuna, the second to the brahmaviharas, is when you recognize the suffering of others and wish for them to be free of that suffering. So I'll talk more about this in the next session this evening. So I think that's probably the better time. So with metta, you're just cultivating that gentle, all-accepting mind, that infinite tolerance and acceptance and gentleness and loving state of mind. So whether people are disrespectful or respectful, it doesn't matter at all to metta. But a particular practice for people who are being disrespectful towards you, again, that fits better under compassion practice. So we'll talk about that this evening. Then Hayden says, metta seems to be a favorite for many people. Is it worth giving equal time to each brahmavihara, or is metta forefront for a reason? I think metta is forefront for several reasons. 1, it's the easiest of the 4. 2, it's the most straightforward of the 4. 3, it's the most euphoric of the 4. And also, metta tends to be the natural precursor to the other 3. So if you start with metta, then it's much easier to develop the other 3. But if you don't start with metta, then the other 3, while still possible, the other 3 are much more difficult to access. So giving equal time to each one, well, actually, as you develop the brahmaviharas, you start to realize that all 4 of them naturally feed and support each other. So you start to recognize that they're not quite as separable as they seem to be when we talk about them intellectually. So I'll probably talk more about that in the third talk on this subject. Yeah, they're not quite separable. But metta, again, metta is the most accessible, it's the easiest, it's the most straightforward, it's the most euphoric. And it also helps to condition the mind for the other 3. So those are some reasons why I think it's usually given the most attention. Then Anita asks, would you say that as the metta practice deepens, one is able to be more responsive rather than reactive? Yeah, that can be one of the effects of it. what we are doing is we're replacing our aversive reactive tendency. So our aversive habits, we're replacing with the habit of metta, with the habit of gentleness and kindness and acceptance and tolerance. So that's quite important because it cuts through our old habits, our bad habits of negative reactivity. And yeah, it makes it easier for us to respond appropriately to situations. And that's the last question that I'm seeing here. Question? Yeah, go ahead. No. Okay. So that's the last question. So I think we can go ahead and end the session here. And again, I'll be continuing with the series this evening. So please join in again at 7:30 New York time for the next in the series of talks on the brahmaviharas. For now, we can end with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you next time.